I'd like to call the Plymouth Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, September 9th, 2020 to order at 7:02 p.m. Pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 2, adoption of the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Foote, and do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Showers, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, item number 3. I'd like to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 19th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Greg Showers, and seconded by Mr. Foote. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Item number 4, superintendent's update. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Semmel for the last time.
Yeah, I jumped in there, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, the last time. Definitely have a few comments to make tonight, and I'm also going to ask at least one other person to make some comments tonight. But to start, I do want to talk about reopening of our schools. We reopened on Thursday, September 3rd, with half days for our students. So we had half of our students come back for a half day on September 3rd, and then we had our other half of our students come to us on September 4th. And we've also obviously had class on Tuesday and Wednesday today. I got to tell you, we should be very proud of all the staff in our district. We were certainly dealing with some anxiety by teachers and students leading up to the reopening, but a lot of that has subsided now that we're here. Now that everyone's been back, I got to say that the principals and all the administrative team worked their tail off to make sure we're prepared for this year, and it paid off. Our tech team has been working tirelessly. Our maintenance team has been working tirelessly to get this done, and you really should be proud of all the work that everyone did to make this happen. Our teachers now are in the trenches. They're making sure everything's working. There's going to be some glitches here and there. Parents are going to have to be patient with us, but we're doing our best to work through those things. The half days that we did really did help. We debated a little bit whether or not we should do half days. I'm glad we did them. They worked out very well. They gave all of our staff a chance to meet with the kids in the morning, go over all the rules, and then meet with their staff in the afternoon and kind of troubleshoot anything that was happening. So it worked really well. We've been in constant communication with our families. Our principals are constantly emailing families to make sure they know what's going on. I've sent out a few myself, but you know, I really feel excited about where we're at. No one has reached out to me to complain about any of this. I'm not sure. I don't think principals are getting a lot of complaints because they would usually keep me in the loop. So I think right now parents are giving us the benefit of the doubt and being patient, and we'll continue to get better and better at this. One of the things that was big for us this year was our professional development program for all of our teachers. And I got to say, Kathleen joined us, I forgot which day, Kathleen, but she joined us sometime in July 20th. And we are really excited to have Kathleen because it's only been a month and it feels like she's been here for 6 months. She hit the ground running, she got up to speed, and she was able to get that PD going. So I asked her to kind of share some quick remarks about how the PD went for our staff, and then I'll continue with the report.
So we really started our PD day a little bit earlier than the ones where all the staff members came back because we had new teacher orientation, and we expanded new teacher orientation this year to be 2 days instead of 1. Because we felt like the new people coming into the district were coming in at a really difficult time and would benefit by having a little bit of extra support in those first couple of days, a little bit more time with our tech team because we know how much technology is going to be used this year, a little bit more time going over some of the basic policies and procedures for the district so that they could be a little more comfortable when they started on the first day. And that went very well. We had 9 teachers there for new teacher orientation, and we're bringing a few more on board this week and next week, so that process will continue. The first full day of PD for all the staff members was our COVID preparation day, and so for the morning they got a lot of information about COVID. In the afternoon they had some time in their buildings with their principals to really kind of figure out, like, you can see all the X's on the floor and stuff, so going over all of those procedures that are going to keep them and the kids safe. The second day we did a lot with trauma and SEL. At the end of the second day we did a big survey. We asked them, do you know and do you feel comfortable with all the policies and procedures in your building? And by and large they felt really good about it. They felt like they knew what they needed to do when the kids got back. And we also asked them for the SEL stuff, do you feel like you would be able to recognize a child who's having a really hard time? And do you know what to do if that happens? And again, they gave us some really good feedback in terms of feeling very comfortable with that. Then we had a weekend, and they came back for 3 more days. The third day was all curriculum work. They worked with our coaches and with some of our other teacher leaders to work on revising the curriculum, because we know we're not going to have as much time this year. So we were really trying to condense it down into what the most important things were. And so they had a lot of time to work on that on last Monday. The next day, they worked with our tech folks to learn a bunch of new skills like screencasting and live streaming and how to use things like Edpuzzle and some of the lesser known parts of Google Classroom to really enhance what they were doing with the kids technologically. And then for the last day, we provided them with a bunch of webinars that dealt with how to manage online and hybrid instruction. So they were prepared by folks from around the state. There were 60 of them they had to pick from, and they had the opportunity to choose 2, any 2 they thought were interesting. And they went through those and they kind of gathered some ideas for how to run their classroom. And we surveyed them at the end of those 3 days too, and also the feedback for all of those days was very positive. Everybody felt like they had a much better idea of what they needed to do in terms of the curriculum, and they also felt like they had a much better idea of what kinds of strategies they could use and what kind of technology tools they could use to really help bring this year to a better start than we kind of did last year when it was kind of on the fly.
Great. So that's the PD we did for our staff. Continuing on, I also want to make sure I'm clear, and principals will keep sending out this information as well. The USDA is extending their feeding program. We sent out some information about that. We're going to keep sending that out. Essentially, all kids 1 through 18 years of age who live in Plymouth can get free breakfast and lunch through December 31st, or until the funding runs out. That's important. So all kids, doesn't matter where they are socioeconomically, can get free breakfast, free lunch, 1 through 18. If they are a remote learner, or if they're a hybrid learner and they're home that day, they need to go to Eli Terry and get their breakfast and lunch between 8 and 8:30 there. If they're in school, they would simply go through our lines. So I want parents to know that, but you can spread that word as well. Alicia DePonte, our food service person, she was right on top of this. She and Paul worked right on top of this, got this done. It should be budget neutral because we're being reimbursed for those meals at more than what they actually cost us to make. So we are not going to be in a budgetary situation because of this. And again, it's federally funded. So that's important to note. But it's also critically important that if someone believes that they would, yes, thank you, from the audience, that they would qualify for free or reduced meals, they still need to put that paperwork forward, because this is actually basically bridging that gap. The government didn't want there to be kids going hungry while paperwork was being completed. So still get the paperwork in. We're still going to go through the whole process of identifying those children. But until December 31st or the money runs out, everybody eats for free. So it's important to note that. On another good note, the scoreboard, I'm not sure if you got a chance to see over at the high school field, but the scoreboard is installed. It looks awesome. It's not electrified yet, so there's no power to it, but that's going to come soon. And I think soccer starts October 1, games playing, so it'll be ready for that. Let's knock on wood that our athletes will be able to play, and they'll know what score it is, and they'll know how much time is left on the clock. Those are big deals. Lisa King, if you guys remember, our para-educator of the year that we named back in April or May, I'm forgetting right now, she was named as a state finalist for para of the year. So I had the pleasure of giving her a little mock interview today and kind of walking her through the paces of what an interview might look like. She's going to do great, but I think it's exciting that we have a finalist for para of the year. So I believe her interview is next week sometime. So good luck to Lisa. And then lastly for me, I do want to, this is my last board meeting with the Board of Education, and I do want to thank the entire Board of Education for all of your support during these past 5 years that I've been here. I think I counted I've worked with over 20 board members in Plymouth, easily, when I think about all the board members. But there have been 2, Karen and Melissa, who have been here the entire time since I've been hired. So special thanks to them for all that time that they've worked with me during this work. It is definitely bittersweet for me to leave. I didn't even know exactly where Plymouth was at first. I knew it by Terryville kind of thing, and the Ville, people had called it. But I got to tell you that as I've spent my time here, I've learned to really love this town. It's full of hardworking people who love their kids, who want to see what's best for their kids, and what more can you ask for? So I've always tried to make it my goal to provide the best education possible that we could for our kids in a fiscally responsible way. And I think we've done that as a board throughout these years. So it truly has been a team effort from myself all the way through the teaching staff and everyone in between. I give all them the credit for all the successes we've had. I'm wishing Sherry good luck as she takes over Saturday at 12:01 a.m. She's going to do great. I've had a chance to work with Sherry and make sure she's up to speed. She's going to do great. And I also wish Becky Holleran, who's going to be serving as interim principal at Plymouth Center, a lot of good luck. And of course, to Paul as well, because Paul will be leaving also. So leaving those big shoes to fill that Paul's had. So again, thank you so much for all the support, and I'm really going to miss this place, and I wish you guys tremendous luck moving into the future. So that's the end of my report.
All right, student representatives, are we doing those?
We are,
virtually?
yep. The kids should be on Zoom.
Hi, Mr. Chair. I see Gena and Lily.
Okay.
So,
Why don't we pick Lily to go first then?
okay. Lily, I'm going to ask you to unmute in a moment. Okay, Lily, you should be hearing a message to unmute. You might have to hit *6.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Very loudly.
Okay. I'm Lilyana Ricardo. I'm a senior, and I'm the Vice President of Student Council.
Great.
Welcome.
We're excited to have you join the board as a student rep, Lilyana.
Thank you.
Do you have any items you would like to speak about or inform us about?
I can discuss, we don't have a lot of fundraisers right now, but we have our painted parking spots, which this is our second year doing it. Essentially what it is the senior class, when they buy their parking spot for the year for the school, they have the opportunity to paint it however they'd like to personalize it. And this is a fundraiser that gets passed down through the classes. So right now, the senior class is taking care of it alongside student council, and then it'll get passed down to the next class. And this year we decided to do it free of charge just because of everything going on. But that's one of our biggest fundraisers at the moment.
Okay, great. Any other comments?
I think that's it for now.
All right, well, thank you very much, and welcome.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Okay.
do we have Gena?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll try to bring Gena on. Gena, I'm going to unmute you. Again, you might have to hit *6.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you fine.
Hello, Gena, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm Gena Buckley, and I'm a senior at the high school, and I'm the secretary of the student council.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I actually wanted to discuss the Life Matters Suicide Prevention Walk that's hosted by the high school. And I just wanted to say that it is still going on this year, although it's entirely virtual this year to maintain social distancing. So it's going to occur September 27th through October 3rd, and you can send a video of you and anyone else walking using social distancing. And you say one word while you are walking, and you leave a message of hope. So you can invite your friends and family to send videos. And these videos can be sent to lifematters@plymouthschools.us.
Okay. Thank you for your hard work and continuing that important topic.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Trudeau.
I just want to make sure that Tyler isn't another participant under another name, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Tyler, if you're on, can you go to your participants window at the bottom of the meeting and then bring up participants? You should see a raised hand.
Is Gena done? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Gena.
Thank you, Gene.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you too.
I don't see any raised hands, so I don't think Tyler's with us tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Item number 6 on the agenda, public comment. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Trudeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, if anyone's on the phone, just press *9 to raise your hand. We'll see you. If you're connected to the meeting by computer, as I just mentioned for Tyler, just go to your participants window at the bottom, and then it should show up to your right. Hit the raise hand icon. I don't see any, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Trudeau.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have one right now.
Okay.
Okay, Randy, I'm going to go over to you. You should be unmuted. Feel free to go, Brandy. I'm not sure if your mic's on. Was that something? Hi, Brandy, are you there?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I could not hear you guys.
Okay, we hear you fine now.
All right. Hello,
Hi,
Hi, Brandy.
My-
Can you please?
Brandy. I am a parent of an 8th grade student currently at Eli Terry. I just wanted to first off let you guys know that I have total confidence in everything that you're doing, and I thank you so much for keeping our kids safe and making sure that everything runs smoothly. That's the first thing I want to say.
Sorry, I need to see.
The second thing is I have maybe a question, concern, a little bit of both about Spanish. So in 8th grade, my son was supposed to be able to get a high school credit for his Spanish class, and I know that Miss Negron took the year off. And I don't know if you've been looking for someone or if you're going to hire someone or what's going on with that, but I really am concerned because I wanted to make sure he got that credit that could help him in high school.
So, Brandy, it's Dr. Summel. We were certainly looking for a Spanish teacher, and we knew it could be difficult to find one. We looked throughout the summer to try to find a Spanish teacher, but we were unable to find one. So Ms. Suffrage needed to have a staff member, so we actually posted the position for an additional English teacher so we could help with the social distancing and all that. So we looked in the possibility of doing online Spanish for our students, but in working with the person who's in charge of our online program, it is very, very challenging to take Spanish 1 online, although we're not against it. So we could potentially connect your child to that course, but understand it's very difficult. But one other thing to mention, Spanish 1 in grade 8 would actually not get your child an actual high school credit. So it wouldn't be serving to help with graduation once he got to the high school. But we did want to offer Spanish 1, we really did. It just became the situation that we're in right now. So it's unfortunate, but that's where we stand at this point.
Okay, so my next question is most colleges want 2 years of language. If he was able to take it in 8th grade and 1 in high school, would that, I mean, I know
No.
certain colleges have certain things,
No.
but I just wanted to know if 2 languages, it doesn't matter when you take them, would it count?
It's a good question, but the answer is no.
No?
The Spanish 1 in 8th grade does not count as high school credits for colleges. So you typically need to take 2 years in high school. So if he had taken Spanish 1, he would need to take Spanish 2 and Spanish 3 here at the high school. So when he comes up as a freshman next year, he can take Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 and have no issue. He could continue to take Spanish 3 and Spanish 4, which is currently where we finish Spanish. We only have through Spanish 4 right now, although I know we've talked about trying to add an AP Spanish class in the future.
Okay, well, that's perfect. That's just what I wanted to know. So it wouldn't benefit him in the future if he did it virtually now. So, okay, that's really all I needed to know.
Yep.
Okay. Brandy, what I need you to do, if you could, is state your full name and your address for the record, please.
Absolutely. My name is Brandy Gaetano, and my address is 282 Main Street, Unit 8, Terryville, Connecticut.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And thank you, guys.
Any other public comment?
I see none.
Okay, well, seeing none, we'll move along to unfinished business. This is the second reading. We're going to have a discussion on the motion, and we're going to let Lindsay kind of walk us through this, what this actually means for us.
So you guys had the rationale for why we need to adopt this policy, so I'm not going to review that whole thing. That was in your first read. The second read just included, you guys have to make a decision. When we're making Title IX decisions, what happens is there's a whole bunch of steps, but there is basically an investigation that happens, and then the new policy includes a formal report, and then a decision maker makes a decision. And so the decision has to be made on a standard of evidence. So previously, the standard of evidence was clear and convincing, up to 2011. In 2011, the Office of Civil Rights changed that to allow for a preponderance of evidence. And now, after the final rule, which was released in April, you guys get to make the decision on the standard of evidence that we use in all of our investigations. So Title IX investigations can be student to student, teacher to student, student to teacher, teacher to teacher. So it could be any of those four matchups, I guess you could call them, in a Title IX investigation. And so the same standard needs to be used when you're investigating all of these situations. So the difference between the two is that I'm going to read it right off of this, and then I can go into more detail for you guys if you want more detail. But the preponderance of evidence basically means more than 50% likely. It's a lower standard of evidence than clear and convincing. And then clear and convincing means that it's substantially more probable to be true than not. So well over 50% likely. And this is, both of those are below the standard of unreasonable doubt, which is what we would use in a court. So we have to make a decision in the policy and regulation which standard of evidence we want to use. Preponderance, which means more than 50% likely, or clear and convincing, which is well over 50% likely.
Okay.
So that's the decision you need to make before you can kind of move on with adopting the policy.
Any questions for Lindsay? A lot of discussion.
You want it to be clearer? It's not very clear, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I didn't hear it. I thought the first one said preponderance was likely 50%, but then you said more than 50%. Just clarify that for me.
So it has to be more likely than not. So I would say 50% would be, like if you're only at 50%, then it's not more likely than not. The problem is that this isn't, you don't get a fact sheet and then say there's 3 facts that we know are true and 3 facts that we know are false, but we're at 50%. It's always going to be a little bit gray. So preponderance would be more than 50% likely, so you could be 51% likely or more, and clear and convincing is substantially more probable than not.
This is so.
Yeah. So clear as mud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So preponderance would be a lot. You would obviously still include, there would be interviews, there would be evidence.
Yeah, so the standard of evidence doesn't change the process that we do for fact-finding. So investigations and any conversations that are had with any of the, they're called a complainant and a respondent, any of those conversations would all happen just the same no matter what. This is only the decision maker's standard of evidence.
Standard, right.
Right, so it's only, nothing changes in the process. We would do our investigations exactly the same. We would interview the same people. Everyone has the same rights no matter what we choose. And so we just have to pick a standard of evidence. So we can certainly answer questions. We've obviously had a lot of conversations about this, but we certainly can answer questions.
And so how would you define clear and convincing evidence? This is like actual facts, pieces of paper, text messages, things of that nature.
So I would say those things could also exist in a preponderance of evidence. So I don't know that what the facts are going to look like. Every Title IX investigation, just like any investigation that we do, is very fact specific. And so I don't know that I can say like, okay, so I guess if there was like a picture of someone engaging in some sort of act, that would be clear and convincing.
Well,
but
that would be clear.
I mean, I don't know that like I can pick one detail and tell you that's going to be the difference between preponderance and clear and convincing.
Like in these situations, and you're interviewing people, and during the investigation, you're going to get multiple sides of a story, right? And so that investigation is going to have evidence that says, well, maybe it didn't happen, and evidence that says, well, maybe it did happen. And the clear and convincing is, boy, there seems to be a lot more evidence that it did happen. But the preponderance is not a low standard to me. It needs to be that it's more likely that it did occur than not occur. But the clear and convincing is, wow, it's really piled up, and it seems not completely definite, but more likely than just preponderance. They're both standards that have been used by the federal government. And at this point, for some reason, each board gets to each board gets to choose. So we wanted to make sure.
To the best of your knowledge, your collective knowledge, how many times has this policy been put into place here? Like, how many times have we had to?
So I've only been the Title IX coordinator for 1 year.
Yep.
As that's how long I've been in my position, and in that time there was one investigation.
Okay.
Right.
So I don't know if you can speak more. Sorry, there were 2, but one that was kind of formally in school, and so you can speak more to my years prior to mine.
Yeah, and I don't think there were. I can't recall.
Okay.
I can't recall any others.
But it is something that comes up. It's not something that's not come up in 20 years, kind of thing.
Right. It could come up.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that's important to note is that we are talking all ages. So, when we're thinking about small children and their accounts and the details that they give, we just want to recognize that it might not always be clear and convincing from a small child. And so I think that's one of the things that we've kind of considered. But again, it's a decision that you guys get to make. And so if you have questions, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I certainly can answer questions if you have. If you can figure out what to ask.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
I just overall am not comfortable with this. I just think it's too vague for us.
Yeah. Have we talked to legal counsel and got their input?
We have not talked to legal at this point regarding this specific. We've had a lot of conversations with legal about the new updates, and I've gone to a lot of webinars and trainings, I guess, but there's been no specific guidance from legal on what we should choose.
Okay. Is there a trend on what other districts have done?
Not that I'm aware of. I think districts are in the same position we are, where this took a backseat to a lot of other things that have happened in the last month.
My feeling is I would like to get a legal suggestion on which direction to head in and what the consequences and what the advantages of each one are. I don't want to make an uninformed decision, and this is, to me, for myself, is kind of an uninformed decision on what each one means and what the ramifications down the road could be. So, for instance, if we pick the preponderance of evidence, and that's what we went with, and we said, okay, well, here it is, and then they rebut and are able to come back and,
So something that's important to note is that we can always consult legal at any time in a Title IX investigation. So if you guys make a decision and we're working with the facts that we have in the investigation that we're having, there's nothing to say, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing to say we can't say we're not sure where to go with this and we can consult our legal at any time. But we can certainly table the decision.
Right, the decision maker, who in this case, right now, Kathleen, has been given that illustrious title. So the the investigators are your principals, and your decision maker is Kathleen, and your appeals person is your superintendent. So there are cases sometimes that are very, I'll call them more high profile, where the superintendent's going to recommend you bring legal in immediately and have the legal person do the investigation, just because the consequences can be more significant for some of these cases. So you start with legal. It all depends on the case that you're dealing with. But there will be cases that a principal could be dealing with that's a 4th grader and a 5th grader.
Right.
It doesn't sound like there could be a Title IX issue there, but it has to be investigated. And if something is pervasive, the school needs to do something about it to try to make sure that doesn't continue. We can certainly go back and see what legal would say. My thought, though, is they're going to say, well, this is what it says. This is the language, and it's the board's choice to make this. And there's no legal ramification because you get to make the choice. Clearly, you want your investigators to be trained, so one of the things that Lindsay's going to do, our principals are already able to do investigations, but we're going to make sure we offer Title IX training for our principals as well, because we want to make sure the investigations are done really well, because that means that Kathleen gets information that's really well laid out for her. I think that's what's critical there. So you can always ask for additional time or additional information, but this is one of those things that don't just kick the can down the road because you don't want to make a decision.
No, right,
You are going to have to make a decision on this, and if you have specific questions that we can go back and get answered for you, we'd be happy to do that.
I guess my question is actually to both of you is, and you don't have to answer this question, but what do you prefer? Because you're the ones who are dealing with this. Which one do you prefer? This is for both you and Kathleen.
Yeah, so we did speak at length about this, and I think Dr. Summel's in agreement that for us, when you think about, like I said before, if you're talking in our investigations from our students go pre-K to 21, and some of the accounts that students give may not be clear and convincing, but to us, if the evidence shows us that it's over 50% likely that this happened, we want to make sure that we are taking the next steps that need to be taken. And so we would trend towards preponderance of evidence.
Yeah, I've had the Title IX coordinator role in another district, and I have had to do Title IX investigations with elementary age students. They're very difficult. My personal preference would be preponderance, just dealing with the age of the children and their ability to articulate what happened. It makes it very hard to do clear and convincing when you're talking to like 6 and 7-year-olds.
Okay.
Thank you.
So preponderance would allow you to take those next steps.
Absolutely. Any standard of evidence is going to, do you mean consulting legal or just?
Or moving further, and like, yes, this is credible, we feel that we have a preponderance, right? Yeah, okay.
The other thing that we had a conversation about, which I think is, appropriate to talk about, is if it does involve a staff member, and the investigation involves a staff member, if you're over 50% convinced that it happened, that to me is concerning, right? So if your evidence is over 50% likely and there's a staff member involved, that's a concerning, even if it's not clear and convincing, highly probable, it would be a concerning issue if you had a staff member that was over 50% likely involved in one of these cases. That's another conversation that we had, because we went through this same process before you guys.
Yeah.
Any comments, questions?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the advice that we've been given.
Okay, Sai.
So let me just make what I think is a good case for the clear and convincing evidence standard. There is a reason that when it comes to very serious accusations, like let's say crimes, they don't use the preponderance of the evidence standard. In actual criminal courts, obviously we're not a criminal court, but I just want to get somewhere with this. But they actually don't even use the clear and convincing evidence standard. They go even higher to beyond a reasonable doubt standard. The reason for that isn't because they don't want the criminal to be, it's not that they want the criminal to go free, it's because it's a very serious accusation. It's because everybody takes the accusation seriously that it is such a high standard, not that nobody takes the accusation seriously that it's such a high standard. So when we come down to our level at the school district, and we don't even have beyond a reasonable doubt as an option here, which might be a good or bad thing, whatever you think, but the two options here are not beyond a reasonable doubt, which is extraordinarily difficult to prove, and then preponderance of the evidence. We don't have two things that are very far apart. We do have preponderance of the evidence and clear and convincing evidence. Again, preponderance of the evidence is just, I think it's a little more likely than not that it happened. And I take these things so seriously that I wouldn't want that to be the type of standard that a person was taking when they're deciding whether or not something this serious has happened. I think it's a little more likely than not that it happened. I just, when you look at the criminal justice system or any type of system where you're trying to decide whether something very serious happened, that's just not the type of approach people take. That is why I think the clear and convincing evidence standard is a little bit better. Again, it's not as serious as beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't have to go beyond a reasonable doubt for clear and convincing. It is just clear and convincing because you are taking a very serious accusation here, and you're going to take it very seriously. I'm not saying you're not taking it very seriously in preponderance of the evidence, but when you need to go a little bit more than just 50%, you want to have that a little bit of a, I'll say a buffer that somebody innocent is not getting preponderance of the evidence in determining that they did something that they didn't do. That goes for anyone in any situation. And again, it's because it's taken so seriously that they use the higher standards for determining whether or not someone did something wrong or not. So that is the case that I'll make for clear, convincing evidence. I do think it would be a pretty big mistake for preponderance of the evidence for something this significant. Preponderance of the evidence, I believe, is used for civil cases. Again, I'm going to courts, and we're not a court. But I do believe preponderance of the evidence is used for civil cases because it's not whether or not somebody committed a crime against another person. It's whether or not somebody owes somebody money or something like that. So that is why I would have to say the clear and convincing evidence standard would be better for our situation.
Any other?
The only thing I would just add is if it's a very, very serious allegation, and I think the most serious ones is when a child is saying something about a staff member. Keep in mind that we also have other responsibilities. We would be getting DCF involved. There's a due process expectation, which is part of the investigation process, and we also get the police involved. So if there's going to be a true criminal matter here, the police would be investigating that. And if DCF is involved, they actually ask us to get out of the way of the investigation. So if it's truly like the significant situation, we probably won't even be doing the investigation. Or like I said, we'd have a lawyer actually leading that for us to make sure every single I is dotted and T is crossed. Because I get it. And I agree that if a serious allegation is being made about a staff member, I'd want to make sure that an innocent staff member is not being raked through the mud. And that's why there's all these other avenues to make sure that someone's getting their due process and not inappropriately. We actually had a similar conversation that you had, or that you were just saying, Josiah. So we see that differentiation, and it's not lost on us. But after all the conversations, and the fact that it's going to be a lot of student-on-student situations, the preponderance of evidence, again, seems to be, for us, the most appropriate. But that's our perspective, and you guys have yours, and so, again. That's why you guys get, that's why you guys get a vote and I don't.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I honestly, in general, don't like the idea of something this serious being handled by schools. I'd rather it be handled by police, but that's the situation it's in. Just to add on what he said, and we're not arguing. Everything he said is I mean, sure. Again, it's different differences of how this type of stuff should be handled. Just want to emphasize on what he said. If it is brought to the police or something like that, that's beyond a standard of either of these. Correct. So again, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. So we're still, both of the standards we have here are still lower than that. That's why I do think it's important for serious cases like this to not go so low as to preponderance of the evidence, which is used in much less situations. I think when it's serious like this, it should be clear and convincing. But that's just me.
I have a question. Can it be, like, so you're talking about two different things, like student on student and then student on staff?
It has to be the same standard of evidence for all investigations.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're about to ask, sorry.
Yeah.
But it's the same standard. So you're going to pick one standard and it applies to all the entire policy and regulation, no matter if it's student to student, staff to student, student to staff. You can't pick and choose which standard of evidence.
It seems to me we would be the first place that is called upon. And for us to go to a stronger penalty type of thing, I think would be a little presumptive. I think the preponderance of evidence is good enough for the first responders, so to speak. And if we find against that person, they can always appeal anyway. And if we go for the higher level of, I think we'd be, I don't know, making it more difficult for ourselves even.
Am I correct in thinking, though, that many, if there were 10 cases that fell under this policy, maybe one of them would go beyond the school system?
I don't know that I have an answer to that question. I think
Like
it
this
would
is,
depend on what type of cases
yeah,
they were.
if it was student to student, it would be unlikely that it would go any further unless it was a pretty serious thing, right?
Yeah, that's hard to predict.
Yeah, it depends, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it's.
You also have to remember that, again, like we just said, so we had, I think, 2 in my tenure here, and then I'm not sure how many years, but a lot of, if 1 out of 2 went further, then it's 50%.
Right.
1 out of 10. So it's hard, it's a very small sample size. So
Right.
You can predict what each case will bring.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what Josiah said, and I'm just thinking that, like, there would be that gray area where it's not going to a higher level. And, now we're using the, 50.5%. So.
Yep.
So I have a question. If it got to just the first part of a documentation, isn't it an automatic call to a DCF, no matter like where the investigation goes?
It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the age of the students. It depends on what the accusation is from, like, between the 2 parties. So was it a verbal comment? If someone made a verbal comment that was degrading, that involved, sex or gender, then that would also be could be investigated by Title IX. So that would probably require a call to DCF. It really would depend. I can't guarantee that no matter what is investigated, we would be calling an authority, like a different authority.
Anybody have anything else to add or questions?
I will say, originally I was going to go for the higher, then I asked you guys the question. I listened to what Josiah said, but I think back to what you keep saying is, what if it is a bunch of little kids? And we have to be very clear that this is what's happening. So I get a little nervous about trying to go a little bit above that, so.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm feeling a little bit opposite because I kind of feel like, we also don't want to blame a child for something that they didn't do.
Exactly, right.
Without clear evidence.
Right.
I don't know.
Because kids accuse each other all the time.
Correct.
And that's my concern. I share your concern, Josiah, with that. But I also share your input and what's best. Well, we have a couple options. We could take action tonight, or we could choose not to take action, and we can, think it over. But I would suggest that if we must take action the next meeting.
Absolutely. That would be and we would have to say that we're going to actually, ask some questions or do something in the process.
Absolutely.
If we were to push it off to next time.
Absolutely. So let's go around the table and get thoughts if we want to take action, not take action, or where we're at. We'll start with Mr. Showers.
I'm comfortable with preponderance of evidence.
You are?
Yes.
Okay.
I am too.
All right.
Take action.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were going that way.
Yeah. Josiah?
Oh,
You
yeah,
want to
clear,
take action
clear and
tonight?
convincing. Yeah, I mean, well, I'd vote tonight.
Okay.
Take action tonight.
Take action. Cindy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, take action's
All
fine.
right, we'll take action now. Okay,
Okay.
which way do we want to go?
So we'd have to make a motion.
Someone makes
We'd
a
have to,
motion.
yeah, we have to
I
make a
make-
motion
Yeah.
one way or the other, and then people vote on the motion.
Okay. Well, we'll start with option A. So to entertain a motion to approve the following: policy P4000.1, P5145.
Wait, no, sorry to interrupt you. First, you have to take a motion to decide, right?
No,
No.
I sent you a note today.
Okay.
We sent this,
I thought they had to make a motion to decide
Nope.
which one.
yeah, that was we had an original thought on this, but no,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah.
Okay.
I never connected with you face to face on that. But when you check your email, you'll be like, oh, okay.
So entertain a motion to approve the following: policy P4000.1, P5145.44, personnel, certified and non-certified, student/Title IX, and regulation R4000.1, R5145.44, personnel, certified and non-certified students, Title IX. Grievance procedure, complaint process, selecting the following language for both the policy and regulation. Option A, preponderance of evidence standard, the previous existing standard. Do I have a motion?
So, policy A.
All right, Mr. Foote for the motion. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Melissa Johnson for the second. Discussion on that motion. Everybody understands that we're leaning towards
We would be voting.
preponderance.
Yeah, if we vote yes, we
Option
would
A.
be voting for A, yes.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote if there's no discussion. Mr. Showers?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Foote?
Yes.
Mr. Elsigar?
No.
Mrs. Kreml?
Yes.
Mrs. Kanji Florenciani?
Yes.
Mrs. Colessa?
No.
Okay, and Ms. Lucen's going to abstain. Motion carries. All right. Thank you. All right. New business, the Board of Education meeting dates for 2021. They were in your packet. Anything on that discussion? Okay. Agenda item number 9, board members and committee reports, finance and operations. Mr. Hendrickson.
Start before the meeting. Through August, we are 11% of our budget, or roughly 2.7 million. Last year was 9.1%, we budgeted for 2.2 million. This difference of 2% is really 60% on the expense side. We spent $354,000 paying the September health benefits invoice in August. And we did not do that last year, so that takes 60% of that difference, is 2%. And then the remaining is reflected in encumbrances, and encumbrances were largely in special ed and tech, evenly split. In special ed, it was outplacements, diagnostic services, and PPE equipment, face shields, and gowns are on order. And in tech, it was tech materials and equipment replacement. Going back to the last meeting, we need to have a signed request to transfer funds to the sinking fund, and I will forward that to town hall. Also, our encumbrances at year end were $900,000. They're roughly down to one-third of that, or approximately $300,000 at this time. Since this is my last meeting, I'd like to thank the business office, particularly Robin, Linda, and Rachel, because they have been instrumental in propping me up in my 27 months here. And they were also instrumental in installing and making the transition to the Infinite Vision accounting system. They spent approximately 2 days a week online with a teacher learning the system. This took away from the time that they could spend on their normal duties, and they did a yeoman's job. We've gone through the payrolls with very little difficulty. And additionally, I'd like to thank Tim Mazon for his leadership of his people, both last summer and this summer, in accomplishing some very significant projects that make the entire district better. You know, Alicia DePonte, our leader in food service, she has done a great job in identifying opportunities for funding, for teaching staff, and for equipment replacement. And lastly, I'd like to thank Dr. Semmel for bringing me on board 27 months ago. Fortunately, there won't be much split time, because I'll meet him next week in Trumbull on Thursday. And I've enjoyed my time in Plymouth, the students, the staff, and the people in Plymouth that have been most involved in And being a numbers guy, I just did a quick calculation. And in my 27 months, I've driven roughly 70,000 miles back and forth between my home and Plymouth, which, as I calculated, is almost 3 times around the world. So I'm looking forward to a shorter commute, and I'd like to see a soccer game with a scoreboard operating.
Perfect.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then we have the personnel report in there too.
Yep, and the personnel report that you saw, everybody reviewed. Any questions on that? Okay. Facilities update. Do we want to go over anything?
I think the facilities update, the biggest one is the scoreboard being put out there. There was a lot of projects that were mentioned at the last meeting, so those were all completed.
All right. Public comment, round 2, Mr. Trudeau.
Hi, if anyone has joined the meeting and they wish to comment, please raise your hand. If you're on phone, *9. If you're on your computer, click the participants icon at the bottom, and then you'll see a raise hand icon. I see none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So seeing none, we'll move along to item number 11, board liaison reports. We'll start with myself, Harry S. Fisher Elementary School. Their first meeting will be September 15th, so I don't have a report at this time, but next month I will. Mr. Elsegar, anything from Plymouth Center?
Yeah, they had a meeting yesterday, but I got the notice that it was, well, I saw the notice that it was yesterday, this morning. But
Okay.
the good news is I have all of their upcoming meetings for the foreseeable calendar year into next year, so I won't be missing anymore.
All right. Cindy?
So for the middle school, we're setting up our budget. We did do a nice welcome back for the staff. We filled their fridge with drinks, and we got like little individual snacks for them, breakfast items, lunch items. And we set that up before school started, and the staff really appreciated that. We're setting up with the banks. We're going to do a Venmo type of account, so this way we can hopefully do fundraisers and get membership and stuff like that. And our next meeting will be September 22nd at 7 o'clock on Zoom.
Okay.
And Booster Club, we haven't had a meeting yet. I know that they're working on Venmo accounts and a mask fundraiser, but I believe somebody else is doing a mask fundraiser. So they're looking at different fundraisers to do too.
Okay. All right. Mr. Foote, SEPTA?
No report.
Oh. What?
Oh, yeah, I don't have a report. If they've had a meeting, they haven't let me know yet.
Okay, perfect. All right. Kate?
CABE announced earlier today that they are postponing their annual convention. And then they have 4 webinars coming up for the month of October, all around legal issues. And I believe they will be discussing COVID along with those legal issues. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Johnson, anything?
So we had a Zoom meeting on Thursday, and basically they already decided the next 2 will be Zoom, but we have 4 o'clock meetings, so it's a little different. So they had their reopening. They didn't have a traditional convocation either, so they did 5 days of small meetings. Their capacity at the office at this point is 70 to 75% on a daily basis, in and out. All 4 of their special ed programs ran all summer, like I mentioned before, but they did well, but they learned a lot, so when they reopened, it was a little bit smoother. So they're all open and ready to go. DDS granted $95,000 for birth to 3 during the COVID for staff coverage and programming. They're having problems with they're having problems with like employee retention and then actually hiring people, just like us. But their biggest one is actually transportation, because a lot of their transportation were the elderly. So they're looking for people to drive, especially a lot of the smaller buses. Let's see, they also got a employee retention tax benefit from the federal government that helped keep their costs down during the COVID recovery. Jonathan Costa, which we all worked with at least at some point recently. Usually they have a curriculum meeting with all the curriculum directors, but they stopped between May and September, but this year they did it all summer, every 3 weeks because of what's going on with learning. Richard, who is our facilities person, and he basically talked about our tech department, so yay guys. They worked well with them doing the hybrid model. And then the biggest thing for us, because I'm always so proud of this, is the project at Main Street School. I mentioned it before, that they moved FRC and Head Start. They had opened and finished the first floor, so they were in there last week. This week they finished the offices, so they're complete, and they put a playground in.
Well,
That's it.
nice. Yeah. Mr. Showers?
No meetings here are even scheduled yet.
Okay. All right. All right, we'll move along to board comments. I'll start with Mr. Showers. Any board comments?
I just want to say, Marty, Paul, it's been an honor working with you guys. I came on 2 years ago, and I learned a lot from both of you. I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate the time with you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Johnson?
Paul, congratulations and good luck. I'm glad we got to know you. You did a great job. Marty, I'm not going to cry. It was a great experience. We learned a lot from each other, I think. I think we worked well together, and I appreciate everything that we were in the trenches at times with. Miss you a lot, and good luck.
Thank you.
Best wishes.
Mr. Foote?
I said this last meeting, and at my age, I guess I can repeat myself.
You absolutely
But I
can.
just,
You make it in,
You're here, and that's what's important.
that's right. But I just think, I've been on many boards and commissions in Plymouth for over 50 years. And I just really enjoy being on the Board of Education, and it, because of your leadership and working with you and Paul, you've been great. And I just want to thank you all and wish Sherry best of luck when she takes over.
Thank you, Dick.
Oh, me next. Paul, thank you very much. You've been a very steady force in our town and really have helped us to understand. I'll miss your charts, hopefully. Your predecessor, your person after you, whatever that's called. Yeah, they'll have to, this will be a requirement of the job. So we can have a little, because I always say this is the most boring chart I've ever seen in my life, because it's exactly the same every year. But that's good in this situation. So thank you for that. And Marty, as Jerry Bourbonier would say, I've seen a lot of superintendents come and go, obviously, in my many, many years on the board, but I really appreciate how you took over at a time that was a very difficult time for our district and turned things around completely for us. And I have never heard parents and community members talk so highly of a leader of our educational system. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Cindy?
Same thing, Paul. You know, you help sit down with me and look at numbers and stuff, and you know, it's a boring task, but you make it very easy for everybody to understand. Marty, thank you for always signing off on everything that I send to you. You'll do well in Trumbull. I'm excited for Sherry to start. With having 4 kids in 4 different schools, the school year has started off really well. One of the complaints I hear is that they're not getting enough schoolwork, so I guess that can be pretty good. If, you know, parents are like, where's all the work?
Oh, I thought you were hearing that from the kids. I was like, there's no way.
No.
We're
But
easing in.
Yeah, all the kids seem like they're doing, you know, pretty well with it, and it's a nice mix. It's just enough kids in the class, just enough to get them out of the house and get what they need to know under their belts. The scoreboard looks great. The track looks great. I walk it a couple times a week, so that's a really nice improvement. So I'm glad that everything's going well.
Good. Mr. Crowell?
Marty, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, I said I wanted this district to be the kind of district that I would be proud to send my kids to.
I do, yeah.
this district has become that district. And I'm really excited for the work that you've done. Sherry, I hope you can continue in Marty's footsteps. And Paul, thank you for all you've done as well.
I echo what everyone else says, and I'll add that you have always been very professional, and you're a great leader. I think you're going to have a great time in Trumbull, so good luck.
Thank you, Josiah.
So with that said, I'm probably going to mimic everybody. Paul, thank you. I learned a lot from you. You were always there too. If I had a question, you were there. Marty, same thing. You know, we've talked quite a bit on the phone. I've had questions. I've had concerns. You were always there. And sometimes it's, why can't we just do this? And you had the answer, both of you. So I wish you luck, and I'm sure you won't disappear off the face of the earth. So always welcome back. Mrs. Turner, I'm more than confident. I'm not going to wish you luck. I don't think you need it. I think you have the skills and the drive to keep moving forward and keep moving the school district where it needs to be. And you have a great team. So that's that. Any other comments? All right. The next board meeting is scheduled for October 14th at 7 p.m. here in the cafeteria. And I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
By Greg Showers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Foote on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We